somebody like Muddy or Justin or Grant offline about working with them to get a backup. Like, first off, you're probably going to want to work with one of them to help you with the event anyway, right? You
Yeah.
should have somebody. But I'd also be having a serious conversation with somebody about getting a secondary recording system in place. Um, and I will just say it for this particular reason, whether you're recording in Zoom or any other way, like if something is mission critical,
Hmm.
you should always have a backup,
Yeah.
right? So and that's, the Grant gave you one way to do it, which is to do it locally, um, through software. There's hardware. There's a myriad of ways to do it. And the way that works best for you is going to be largely dependent on your setup, right? A very low tech way to do it
Hmm.
is you could have somebody remotely log into Zoom who has the functionality to record a video feed
Hmm.
and record it on their system. Is that going to be the highest quality of recording? No. But is it going to be a really solid backup to,
Hmm.
to Zoom if that happens to fail? Yes. Right. And the thing about doing something along those lines is there's some weirdness with local records when, depending on how it's set up, when somebody else speaks in Zoom
Hmm.
other than you,
Hmm.
their video feed, unless you're doing something on purpose, their video feed won't likely be recorded if you're using a hardware solution. Okay. So one of the odd advantages to having a low tech, somebody remote, record my Zoom meeting for me on
Hmm.
your local system is like if I log into somebody's Zoom meeting
Hmm.
in our studio here in Charleston and I press record, right? Anybody who's talking, the active speaker in Zoom, I'm
Yes.
going to get their audio and I'm going to get their video because I'm just getting a feed from Zoom and Zoom's doing the work for me.
Okay.
So, if you are working with somebody remotely to support you, that same person should be able to record locally as a backup to Zoom. And given your personal situation, I would, because we've talked about, you and I have talked about the fact that you probably should have somebody helping you at
I
that level,
will.
right? With that,
Yeah.
yeah, we should have that person recording as well, right? Because the alternative is like you can do what Grant said with the software solution. You could try and integrate a hardware solution. Both of those things are local and requires you to have some attention on it.
So
And
here's what I'm hearing, Barry, really, or Blue, sorry. Here's what I'm
so, okay.
hearing is that literally that's what I'm doing is I'm trying to look at the backup because the potential of me having a good event, which I'm gearing
Yep.
towards, I want to make sure that I'm covered, and that's the way to do it. I'm not going to be the tech person. I'm going to definitely have to hire someone. And so
Hmm.
whoever I hire needs to know what they're doing in that particular regard to get that secondary backup. And so that's what I will plan for is to make sure that I'm requesting that because it's about the questions, right? You're helping me to learn what the questions are that I need to have answered by maybe not myself, but by someone else who's the expert. So that's great.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
The question you want to ask them is this: do you have the ability to record this Zoom meeting locally without using Zoom?
Okay.
Okay. And the reason for that is they're not going to have the ability to record locally in Zoom.
Okay.
Okay. So it has to be something else. And anybody who has any knowledge of what they're talking about and what they're doing as it relates to supporting you in Zoom, the answer should be yes, or at the very least, they'll understand the question, even if
Super.
the answer is no.
Thank you.
Yep. Hmm.
Cool, cool. Next question.
Yep.
So Onric said during last week's event, a power surge tripped everything. Even my backup power devices had to reboot. I had 3 co-hosts set up on different machines, but even those were kicked out. Zoom then appointed the first attendee as a host who had no idea how to unmute us when we came back after the power came back, and he was now the host. Any best practices you recommend in the future?
Get better power. Okay, I don't think Onric's on this call, right? I feel like I looked and I
I
didn't
don't
see him.
see him.
Yeah, all right. So assuming Onric is actually watching the recording, um, generally speaking, when you go into a Zoom meeting through Obvio, you go in as the host or co-host. Now, if you go in and you are the co-host, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And you can ask the host of the meeting to make you the host. So that's one way to do it. Now, the problem with that is if you're dealing with somebody who's not technical and they have to figure out how to find the participant pane and then find the little more icon or 3 dots on your particular user and then make you the host. There's a lot of steps there. The alternative is on one of your computers when you join Zoom, when you click the blue join button in Obvio, you hold down the shift key. That's going to get you into, this is kind of like a little, it's not really a hack. It's just kind of a little known feature of Obvio. It gets you into Zoom a little bit differently, and it allows you to reclaim host without anybody having to do anything. Now, I would highly recommend that you not go into Zoom that way unless you have to. So that's it. Just hold the shift key down as you click join. For those of you who've been Obvio users for a long time, you'll recognize how you go in because when you get into Zoom, it won't have your name. You'll be named something a little bit different. It'll look like your event domain, something along those lines. It'll say, like in this case, it would say update main stage 1 or something like that. So it's you get named a little bit weird, but you go in as somebody that can reclaim host capabilities. So that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and I would just say best practice is to have other co-hosts that are just sitting there, even if it's your computers. It sounds like there was other computers that were connected that all died at the same time. Having a laptop that's just sitting and connected via cellular is a great backup. So if the host disconnects and not just leaves, actually disconnects, then it will go to the host will go to a co-host, not to an attendee. What it sounds like is that the host and co-hosts all left the meeting, and so it had to go to an attendee. So it's best to have a co-host sitting there, and then it will go to that one, and you can jump in. But actually, it's something worth thinking about. Is not just the technically what happens then, but programmatically what happens if the host falls off the call. Do you have someone else in the team, someone that you have on that call that can take over and say, hey, we've lost our host, let's take a 10-minute break now, or whatever it is, or let's take some questions, or let's go into breakout rooms now and have you discuss things amongst yourself so that the event continues. You've got a backup plan because there's lots of reasons why you could have the host has to step away. But Muddy, have you got an idea as well? Did you just lower your hand? Looks like he did. Muddy just dropped off.
Yeah, no, I was just going to
Oh,
say the order of operations goes, if the host leaves, it's the first co-host. So my best practice is I always join a second machine again with battery backup or a laptop. That's the first co-host. If all the co-hosts leave, it defaults to the first participant, first person in the meeting. So yeah, that's all.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other little things to think about, seeing as we're going to continue to just like bang this drum for a second, is I kind of jokingly said get better power, but There are two things that I would do that people here have already kind of touched on, but I'll be more direct about it. Number one, put your internet router on its own UPS. Don't have that share like its own battery backup UPS, because your typical internet router, like if you have a bunch of stuff connected to an uninterrupted power supply with a battery backup, it'll last like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe, right? But if you put your router by itself on its own UPS, it may last a couple of hours. So that's really important, because just having a laptop by itself is great. The laptop, especially if it's one that, has a decent battery life, when your power goes out, the laptop will remain active. But when your internet goes down, now it's no longer connected to the Zoom meeting and is no longer the host. So there's a couple of other best practices for you, like throw your router on its own UPS, and make sure your laptop isn't an old laptop that the moment it gets unplugged dies. Because I happen to have one of those. I have a laptop that the moment I unplug it, the battery's dead in it, and I don't care because I don't use it very often. But if somebody happens to walk by it and the little MagSafe connection comes loose, it dies instantly or within 30 seconds. So, make sure your backup laptop can live inside a Zoom account for more than 30 seconds.
Yeah. Of course, that could be someone else off site as well. That's even better, right? Totally connected in a different place. So, all right. Next question.
Yes, Rick wants to know, can I schedule a reoccurring monthly webinar in Obvio for the Zoom platform? Starts July 11th through October 10th. This is a no co-host that leads to paid virtual training class. Oh, and no cost. I'm sorry, not no co-host.
So
Okay.
I'm going to
shaking
answer
your head.
this. Well, yeah, I know. I was just shaking my head like no, because the answer to your question is no, but not because the answer is no, because of how you asked the question. So first off, let's start by saying you can't host webinars in the traditional Zoom webinar capacity inside of Obvio. So there's number one, and you get balloons for that particular reaction. Well done, Blue.
Well done, yeah.
Next up, yeah, right. Thanks, iOS. Really love you. The actual answer is if you're hosting your recurring webinar inside of Obvio on a Zoom meeting, then you don't have to make it recurring. You just make the end date for the event in the distant future, and you'll be fine.
Oh, it sounded like that was just half the answer. You were going to continue. That was it.
No, I decided to end there, and if you want to pick up, you can, but it felt
No,
like a
that's fine.
complete answer.
It did. It was. It was. All right. Next question, Heather.
So these kind of go hand in hand, but Jeff wants to know if there's any marketplace updates, and Miriam wants to know that even though we're still building marketplace, when it's done, will it still link with Stripe?
The second question is definitely easier than the first. Yes, when it's done, it will still link with Stripe. Technically, it uses something called Stripe Connect. So you use your own Stripe account. It's not our Stripe account. So all the funds and processing and Stripe fees all go through Stripe. Updates on Marketplace. Is Muddy still on the call?
Yep. Brought to you by Best Buy, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's actually using it. So I'm curious. Muddy, are you actually using, I know we set you up, but are you actually using it for the meeting that we were talking about over the weekend? I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am, and it worked. Super basic, but it worked just as intended. We had a handful of people bought tickets and paid through Stripe.
Awesome. So our first, we'll call it beta test, but really probably more like alpha test, with the new marketplace feature was done this week, with Muddy, and apparently successfully. That was the first I'd heard, whether or not it went well or not. So thanks, Muddy. Yeah, there are still some kinks to work out, but given the fact that we just let somebody use it, it wasn't Muddy, it was a client of Muddy's, and they actually processed tickets. There was, a ton of disclaimers like, hey, but yeah, it is coming along really, really, really well. There's a few, I think there's 4 or 5 major tasks that are still being worked on, but it is really, really, really close, Jeff.
Awesome.
Cool. So it does remind me though, Jeff. Now, I have a little update for you, and I'm glad you're sitting down. So let's just you're gonna have to zoom in a little bit. But what you're gonna see now on the sign up page is that when you enable the sign up page, look at this. There's a link there.
Ooh, Grant Whitehead. Man, I could just hug you. Look at you. I'm so proud of you. I'm gonna send you a gold star, buddy. I gotta give you some flack. That is so cool and so easy. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like Christmas in June.
It was months of meetings and lots of planning and where it should go.
I was in those meetings. I was present for those.
And actually,
every Wednesday.
In the end, I think it still will change how it's laid out and formatted. But because there was disputes amongst the troops as to where it should go. So, but it's there. So, for people that have no idea, it was the sign up page wasn't clear as to what the actual address was for the sign up page. So now when you enable it, you can see the address and you can open it and test it and play around. So that's all there now. So
good. Well,
I mean, there's certain features that we like to have where all we do is we just kind of like say, if you can find it, you get to use it. And the sign up page is one of those features, right? If you can find it, you get to use it.
I think Amy just congratulated me for spearheading this committee, which was never an official committee, but I was working on it. Evs, you have those disputes, you have my email, you can send them to me. I'll tell them how I feel and we can go from there. Go team.
Yeah, we have a small squabble we're going through internally right now. Perhaps you could support us on that one.
We've got an award-winning framework on that, so I'd be happy to run the squabble through it. Get you great results.
Jeff's the head Obvio lobbyist for changes. So nice work. So it's finally worked for sign up page, and so marketplace should not be too much further. You just keep asking.
I love it. I have one more question in the queue, guys, and I hate to do this. I have to jump for a dinner meeting, but I'll check it on the recording. It'll be a quick one.
Oh, you're teasing us now.
Actually,
I know.
It's up next.
It's up next.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, I'll hang for a minute.
We'll go. You can just ask it.
I was curious, trying to do some meta tag tracking, and obviously custom thank you page isn't possible, pixel isn't possible, but wondered if putting a tracking code as HTML code on the dashboard. It's just a webinar sign up, so having people that sign up, would just love for them to hit the dashboard and that to send the data back to Facebook. Was just curious if anybody had done that successfully or if you see any issues with that use case.
So there's two places because there's the embed HTML at the bottom of the dashboard, and so you can do that. One of the issues is around meta tags, as in not the brand, but the function within HTML. Often they want to be seen in the head of the page, and so yeah, I haven't played with those tags specifically. I think it will look across the whole page. And so
It
they
does.
should work when they're sitting in the embed HTML section.
Yeah, the reason they want them at the top of the page is because the top of the page is the part of the page that loads first, right? So if somebody clicks on the page and sees what they want before the page finishes loading and they click out, then the pixel code doesn't actually that script doesn't actually run. I don't remember how meta pixels are formatted. Are they just within script tags? Do you know off the top of your head, Jeff? I haven't looked at one in a while.
I don't know. My ads guy just asked me today, and this is as far as I've gotten into it. He's
Yes,
just
they
thinking through
are.
maybe a
So,
blog post.
uh,
That
Martin,
was
they're
Martin.
just like it's just like open script, close script with
Yes.
the code in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. And
So if it is just if the meta tag is or the meta script is just within a single script tag, you can actually use the scripts function inside of the design submenu,
Okay.
and put that tag on the page that you want it to, or on all pages.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think I'll run it
Yep.
as a script then on the dashboard. And as long as I hit that, I don't have any waiver steps or anything like that. I just want it to fire and be as surefire as possible. So I think dashboard is probably the best way to go.
Yep. And I'll
Cool.
also let
Thanks,
you
guys.
know that there is a header and a footer area inside of the marketplace page builder, where you can put tags like that as well. So that
Nice.
particular function is it because that particular function is really important, especially on a sales page. So it's there.
Perfect. Cool. Thanks, y'all.
Our next question's from Muddy, who has a question about adding YouTube live stream videos to the dashboard, but left it at that.
Yeah, the media insert icon inside of our HTML editor, inside of our blog post editor, doesn't support live stream links. I noticed that recently, so I'm assuming that's what he's referring to, and that's a change that we have to make. And in the meantime, use the HTML embedder.
The HTML embedder didn't work either, for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. But I noticed, in the embed code, it had basically the same YouTube live link in it. It might have just been something screwy that wasn't working, but I just downloaded it and then re-uploaded it as a video on demand, and I made it work. But
yeah, we have to make a change. So the format of that media, there's something around the format of a YouTube live URL looks differently to that media insert feature, and it needs to be updated to include that. What I will tell you is I've had no problems putting YouTube live on pages, both recordings and actual lives, using the HTML feature inside of blog posts.
okay, cool. Thank
Yeah, and
Yep.
just as another approach as well, you can see on our dashboard here that we've got a playlist,
you.
and
Right.
every time, and so the playlist is embedded, and every time I start a live stream, I just add that live stream to the playlist, and now it's sitting at the top of the playlist, and it happens to be, live now on the dashboard. Not that that's what
Yeah.
we're going for, in this particular case. It's just so that it's there immediately. If people come, 5 minutes after the event, that's already sitting there ready for them to review. So it's an easy way to find it. So that's embedding a playlist on the dashboard. Cool. Next question.
The next one's also from Muddy. He has a question about using groups with the active campaign integration.
So I'm having an interesting, with the Doula Givers Institute with their event, they set up we have an active campaign integration. And when people come, we have a form embedded on the intake process on the waiver page that asks them for their cell phone number and then also asks them, do you agree to get messages, yes or no? We're sending that through a webhook back to Active Campaign, and it's populating correctly a phone number and the permission. And then we want that data to come back into Obvio because we're filtering the communication by saying, did they say yes to receive text messages? If so, then we'll send them a text message. The phone number is coming back to Obvio, fine. But that group, which we've added as a group through the integration page, that group isn't populating on a duplicate event. The first event, it's populating fine, duplicated the event, and it's not populating. It's just that one field. So it seemed to me that perhaps groups, my working theory is that perhaps groups import initially, but they don't update the same way that the phone number field is, because it's like a default field, not a special group. Anyway, that's where I'm
at. Yeah, you may be right. The phone number field is, you're right, a default field, and we import that regardless. What I don't know, that sounds like a bug that our team has to look into. Would you
yeah, I'll send a little video over what's going on.
Yeah, or even just a quick email, and we can forward it on to the team responsible for integrations.
And the only thing that's weird is
they love Active Campaign, so it's awesome.
The only thing that's weird is it's working on one event that we set up a few months ago, but it's not working on this new event that we just duplicated. So
yeah, so what I would probably recommend you do, just as a starting point, Muddy, is have you tried re-importing, like going into the event and going to the service integration page and top right, just clicking the import button to seeing if that triggers the import of the data?
Yep, I have tried that. No luck. All right, well, maybe it's just a bug then. I'll send it over to the team. Yes, I love Obvio. Keep up the good work.
Great.
The next one is from Sarah. She wants to know, if you change a template after you have designed another one, will it automatically zap over to the new template to make it customized too?
I was very surprised about how confusingly I wrote that. So what I meant is, like, if you finish customizing a template and then you want to change the template, will all of your customizing stay, and then just like when you change the template, will be customized when you change it?
It tries, but the real answer is not well. So the stuff that comes across that is what we think critically important when you change a template, all your speaker data, your sponsor data, your FAQ data, all that stays. Your blog posts remain, and a few other things. The issue is different templates have different features in different places. So it tries, and we do our best, but a lot of it doesn't translate properly. And I'll tell you right now, you can't actually go from one template to another if the other is going to town hall. So you can't go from any of the other templates to town hall currently at all. So it's definitely one of those things that is on our list to revisit. But I would just say to you that expect it to not work. and for you to have to do some recustomizing, because that'll probably be accurate. Like it'll work-ish.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, really heavy on the ish part of that statement.
All right. David wants to know, what recording quality setting do you recommend for local recording using QuickTime Player? The setting options in QuickTime are high, which is H.264 video, and 44,100 HC AAC audio. Sorry, is this
It's
comprehended?
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you normally have like a maximum and you have a high, and high would be fine for that type of recording. The maximum will make a huge file, particularly if it's a longer event, and that'll be annoying to manage. And so high would be totally fine. You'd barely be able to pick the difference.
Quality-wise, Grant, is that equivalent to what we get from Zoom?
It's still better than what you get from Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you'd be fine. Yeah. Cool.
Esther wants to know, how do I set up my dashboard so that I can create a unique link for the clients who have paid to attend my event? I want to make it so that they can only join on one device and will not be able to share the link with others.
Yeah. So we have to break this down a little bit. There's a couple of things here. So it's important that each of your attendees, your paid attendees, are getting a unique dashboard link, or at least that they're getting into the dashboard as them, right? And so that when they go from the dashboard into Zoom, Zoom knows who they are, and now it will the default for Zoom. Actually, I don't know if it is default. Come to think of it, when you create a new area, yeah, the default is that only one person can join once, a maximum. They can only join once. They can't join from multiple devices in Zoom. Now, we have intentionally allowed people to have the dashboard open on multiple devices. So, because inevitably people have multiple devices and they want to be able to see those in different, open on their phone or things like that. So we don't control how many times the dashboard is open on different devices for the same person, but Zoom manages when if they were to send a link to 5 people, those 5 people could access the dashboard, but they can't get into Zoom. What will happen is that the second person that tries to go in, it'll say you're already in the meeting, you cannot join. Okay, and so that's the default when you create an area, a Zoom area within Obvio. There is a setting there to change that to allow multiple devices, and sometimes some people for different events. For example, we've had people doing a craft event and they want people to be able to join multiple times with multiple devices so that they could have multiple angles. That's a good example of where they want and allow that. Sometimes you get a particular group of people that do want to switch from their computer to a mobile device to an iPad to whatever, and to make that easier, you could allow multiple devices. But the other part of your question was, how do I get the link out to people? And so it depends on, is it Esther? Was it Esther that asked the question, Heather?
Yeah, sorry. I kept thinking I was unmuted. She's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you are you able to talk? And if so, how have you made the who sold those tickets for your people, your attendees?
I saw them from my website.
Okay. Okay.
And
And
I have Zoom, so I just send them a link from Zoom. But in that case, they can share with anybody, and I don't want them to do that. And I understand I can control that from Ovio, but I don't know how to do it. That's why I'm asking that question. I want to know how to do it.
So let me jump in just for a moment. I think the reality is, Esther, this may be a deeper question for you because by default, all you have to do is host your event in Obvio. There's nothing you have to do to make those settings like that. It's exactly how it is. So all you have to do is create your event in Obvio and get your attendees into Obvio the way we would do that with any Obvio event. So there's no special setting to make it like that. You just accept the defaults and it'll be like that. Yeah.
So okay, so that means I have to say, make the landing page in Ovio.
You don't have to make the landing page in Obvio. You just have to make the event delivery in Obvio. So rather than sending them to Zoom, you send them to your Obvio event. And I know you're with us this week, right? So why don't we take a couple of moments with you and John at some point over the next 3 days and see if we can't take a look at that in person.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
The next question is from, I'm sorry. Were you
There
gonna?
you go.
Okay. From Martin, he said, will the ability to have dynamic countdown timers be added to Obvio, aka the end date be populated by an Obvio group?
Yeah, it was a custom field. I remember you asking about this before, Martin. It's a pretty
6 months. I gave you 6 months to make me happy, Blue and Grant.
Yeah.
So 6 months. Come on, tick
Well,
tick.
do you know what you didn't? You know what you didn't do, Martin, is that you didn't get anyone else to ask that for as well. So far we've had one request.
Oh, okay. So I need to get Jeff Veely to be my what do they call him on K Street? My lobbyist. So I'm
That's
gonna
right.
initiate Jeff Veely, and I know he loves food, and I'm an excellent chef. So I'm just gonna, and he's in Texas, so I just need to
Have
will
no
him a
doubt.
cheesecake or a carrot cake, and then I have my lobbying function.
Martin. That's awesome. Don't do any of that. So let me ask, because I don't know that I heard this question originally, or if I did, I've conveniently forgotten it.
You actually had left the meeting when I asked it, so you did not hear it.
Perfect. That makes me feel better. So what you're talking about is basically if you have a time and date defined in a group, to have that group be the countdown timer goes to that time. Is that what you mean?
So this applies to Rick Wool's question where he wants to create a recurring event. I want a continuous event, but different people come in. And basically, they are coming to a specific time and date, which I will know by my CRM. And so I already have that in Ovio as an Ovio group field. I want the countdown timer to use that event date and time as the source of the data. And if I can't have that, can I at least get user controls on the countdown timer where I can apply logic such as if you meet this condition, hide or display, because that doesn't apply to countdown timers only. Because I could fake it by creating a whole bunch of countdown timers stacked on top of each other. And if you're in this data field or you have this tag, show it for you. That's another way I can do that, but I don't have that ability either.
So the countdown timer currently doesn't have visibility, doesn't have rules associated with it. Is that accurate, Grant? I'm not looking at it right now.
Yeah. No, well, no, it does. But it
It does?
doesn't you can't base it on a group, the data within a group, the value of the like a time or something,
Wait. No, yeah, but does it have visibility rules on the countdown timer? Like there's a rules tab in the config?
It wasn't there when I did it, but that was 6 months ago.
Oh, now you're making me question myself. Okay, no.
Yeah. So if I had visibility rules, I could take it.
Yeah, so that's going to be. I'll tell you, Martin, from my perspective, just off the cuff, that's going to be a far easier thing for us to do than having some sort of dynamic countdown timer based on date and time, primarily because that is going to be fraught with issues from a, like, what's the time zone that it's being sent in? Is the field data in the right format? Like, how do we validate that? Groups have very limited validation right now, so it'd probably be a much bigger feature to do that, so that we could also put some guardrails around breaking it, in all honesty. But adding visibility rules to a countdown timer feels a lot more doable in a shorter period of time. When's the thing that you're trying to do this for?
It was in April.
Well, I'm so happy that we are right on time for that. So are you doing it again next April? I just want to know if I've got
No,
10
I'm
months,
planning on doing it again we're kind of planning on doing it again in the fall. And so
all right.
The way I managed it was manual, which puts the burden on me. And basically, I just decided, the way I managed it is there was no countdown timer. That's just basically you go there, and then I had to deal with the service request, wondering when things are and stuff like that, because the countdown timer is great. I was going to purchase an external countdown timer to do it, but you guys have disabled the ability for that to run. And obvious, like I'm cut on all different areas because it's HTML, but you don't allow JavaScripts in HTML.
There's a workaround for that. We do. Like,
yeah, totally do.
Yeah, I know what he's saying though, because you can't put JavaScript inside of the blog post editor.
Yeah.
So you have to put the workaround for that, Martin, is you put the JavaScript in the either in the scripts tab, and then you put the HTML of the embed into the blog post. That'll function. The other way you can do it is you can put the JavaScript at the bottom in the embed HTML feature of the main dashboard page. So you can put the JavaScript there and then put the HTML in the blog post, and that'll work as well. Both of those will work.
I remember talking to you about this before, Martin. Because all you need is a div in the HTML. So you put that in a blog post, and then you reference that div in the script at the bottom of the page, and you can do whatever you want. And that's exactly what I would say you can do with your countdown timers.
Yeah, I tried that and I couldn't get it to work, and it would say it couldn't find the JavaScript. And so
unfortunately, you won't be able to blame us for that. That's unfortunate for you. But you're harsh. A smart dude, and I've just heard
that's harsh, Martin.
You're a great cook as well. So you can definitely make that work. What you're trying to do as a total edge case, as the only Obvio user that's requested it, is something that you can totally do in JavaScript, and you can use other countdown services that allow you to embed, and then they have a JavaScript, and it'll say countdown to this time. And to Blue's point, if you get that right timestamp that you need in your group, and then you use that as a group field, it will totally work. So you could do that now.
Yeah, I think the countdown timer I wanted me to install a JavaScript file somewhere on my website, and that's where it wasn't gonna. You don't allow that, so that's the one that I was looking at.
You,
There are other
you,
services that do that, that are
I'm
independent
going
on.
to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing back, Martin, because
Mhm.
I think you're liking to blame us for this. So
Pretty much, yes.
So when you're saying upload a JavaScript file,
Mhm.
all that means is you need to just host it somewhere else yourself. So it just needs to be hosted somewhere, and then you can reference that in
Yeah, and
Obvio.
like I said, I tried it, and I usually, if it takes more than 15 minutes, it's like, okay, that's way too hard. This was 2 hours, and I could not get it to work. The rendering would just go crazy, and I was like, okay, I'm just not meant to use this feature, and I just basically decided, we'll just deal with the customer support issues that happen when people kind of don't know when they're supposed to be where, and depend on the emails to get them
Well,
where
so
they're supposed to be.
of course, the other thing is that you can simply have the text of when they're joining, like rather than it having to be a countdown, it can just say,
Well, but remember,
this
people
is
are
your time.
buying an event at a specific time. It's the same event hosted at different times. So,
Yep.
seeing all the times there doesn't tell you when your event is. So
No, but
that was the issue. That's
I
in your
hear that.
emails and all that kind of good stuff. But
I hear that, but you could have just the group
Mhm.
displayed really clear as this is your time. So it's 5 p.m. Pacific
ah,
is your time. It doesn't have to be a countdown.
oh, I
It
see
just
where you're
simply,
going. That's not a bad
it just
idea.
simply nice and
See,
big.
It's
despite what they
Yeah,
say
This is your
about you,
time.
Grant, you are useful for something every once in a
There
while.
we go. Who knew? Who knew? Since I can't
I
cook.
love you guys.
Good work, Martin.
and
I like that
actually,
idea.
Martin, I'll tell you for the Evergreen webinar that Barry and I did, where we
Mhm.
hosted it 6 times a day, what Grant's talking about is exactly what we did. So rather than putting a countdown timer in big bold text right at the top of the page above the join the webinar button, it said something along the lines of your webinar starts at, and
And
then the
blah.
time was inserted from, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we had to jump through a few hoops to get the time into Obvio, but that worked beautifully.
No, I can do that. I
And,
like that idea.
I'll tell you something else, Martin. The cool thing about doing that, if you do that, one of the things that we did is we also put that same or that same merge code onto the offline page. So if somebody didn't read that and they still clicked join the webinar, the offline page also said your webinar starts at, and then inserted date or inserted the time. So it was in both places, on the dashboard and then also on the offline page if they happen to not read it on the dashboard.
I like it. Thank you.
awesome.
Was Muddy going to jump in on this, or he gave up? He
I
got
was
bored.
simply going to ask. I was simply going to ask Blue what he did for the training, because I knew before TVE you could choose one of multiple times and then go to the dashboard. So you beat me to it. I already answered it.
Nice. All right. Any more questions, Heather?
Nope, not a single question.
Oh, gee. Well, let me.
Oh, come on, guy.
What? Go.
You just posted one as I said that.
What do we
He
got?
wants, he wants to know, how do I set the chroma key with my ATEM and have it not lose its key?
Not lose it each time you restart it.
Oh, that's awesome.
So-
That's my cue to leave.
Good stuff. Hi guys, great seeing you. Long time. So in OBS, my key is always there, but on my ATEM, if I stand up right now and come back, the ATEM will go. You'll see the chroma key go away. It's like it's in the background. It's not gonna do it now because I'm talking to you. See how here See in the top corner,
Yeah.
it's like it goes away, and sometimes it completely goes away. And I never experienced that with the OBS. And so I'm sure I just don't have a setting set of whatever.
It's a different type of key. And so it's more about the inconsistency of the background is what I'm guessing. And so the
So my
tolerance.
background is it's solid green. I have a ton of light. It's all the same Kelvin, 5600, and it's all around me. I feel like now I don't have enough space between me and the chroma key. It's probably only 2.5, maybe 3 feet. So I know it's not enough there. But on OBS, it's perfect, and it's never not been perfect. So here, this is OBS. It's always consistent and perfect and blah blah blah.
Yeah. Two different technologies, right? Like the processing that it's doing in the ATEM versus what OBS is doing. And so the tolerance level, there's probably nothing that you're doing necessarily that is affecting whether that's going to work or not. In the ATEM, it's just the way that the keyer works. And so if it's breaking up, then there has to be some lighting slight difference on the corners or something that is making the shade slightly different. And that's why it's breaking up, and the tolerance in the ATEM is set lower, and so it's breaking through. It's hard to do well. It's hard to do okay. I mean, it's easy to do chroma key okay. It's really hard to do it well. And so but like it's working okay, but one of the things is that you've got spill, sort of got green, you've got a green tinge on you because you're getting bounced back off of the wall, and that's really tricky.
So
and
yeah, thank you. Does it make sense to use OBS and point it? I mean, the ATEM and point it to OBS to key in OBS and everything else with the ATEM. So it's hardware, not software.
Depends on what you're doing. It depends on what if you're just doing a background, then sure. But if you're doing other things in the ATEM where you want to put yourself over the top of something else, or then you're probably going to want to have that processing within the ATEM, right? So that you can put an ATEM input as the background. And if that's a bit more dynamic, then yes. And look, I personally steer away from chroma keys keying at all, and go to real sets. And there's a couple of reasons. One is that it's easier to do. I think it looks better, and I think that it feels more comfortable in the room as well. So from a psychological point of view, I'd rather be in a nice, comfortable blue room, like your background suggests you are, than in a really bright green room. You know what I mean? It's like I'm spending hours and hours in that room. I'd rather not be in a fluorescent green room. I'd rather be, in the set, but some people have really good reasons as to why they're, doing some dynamic things. There just always is a cognitive load that you put on people, that their brain is saying, what is going on with that background? Why is, sometimes half the face is disappearing. Now that's more in, the Zoom virtual backgrounds.
Yeah,
that's part of it. But even with your glasses, when you turn off to the side slightly, then looking through your glasses, it starts to break up a little bit, because that's really hard to do. There's things like that there is just something that's like, okay, that's not a real background, and so your brain is constantly saying it's not a real background. They're not really in that set. This is not a window into real life. This is an effect. So that's that. Anyway, that's not what you were asking about, but that's just my bent towards physical sets. Makes it really clear for people, and I would rather have a TV in the set than do dynamic background. But you've obviously invested a lot into this, and it's something that you have good reason to do it. So you could play around with changing the lighting a little bit. You might have too much lighting, and there's too much bounce. There is a lot of bounce coming off that back wall. So you could play with that too. Muddy, you got some ideas?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Well, if I remember the ATEM is known to have a pretty good keyer in it. It's kind of has a good reputation, except it doesn't have a lot of controls, right? You can't kind of control the sensitivity of it in the same way that you can in OBS. In OBS, you've got kind of more dials when it comes to the keyer, so you can kind of dial in a little. In the ATEM, I think you just kind of click on it, right? It just kind of like, I want to sample from this spot, or I want to sample from that spot. So the really only thing that and I agree with Grant, I think the thing that's going on is there's just a little bit of variation in the shadows or colors, and lighting is well lit, but maybe not 100% exactly the same from corner to corner. And there's an app for your phone. I think it's called Green Screener, maybe like spelled a little funky, but essentially it shows you hold your phone, it uses your phone camera and it looks at the green screen, and it'll show you visually the slight variations in the greenness. So you'll be able to see like, oh, I've got a little hot spot over here, a little dark spot over here. And so a tool like that can help you. But one of your questions around, is it okay to use the keyer in OBS? It's perfectly reasonable to use a hardware and software solutions together, right? So your camera's coming in through the ATEM, but then you're doing your overlay in OBS and sending that in as a virtual camera. I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable approach. I don't think you need to kind of be afraid of combining different tools, but especially if one is working well.
Perfect. And I have that app as well. I haven't used it in years, and I'll put it back out there. You can look at it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And I saw you laughing, Blue, like, oh my gosh, this question.
Thank you,
guys.
There's a deep dive into this. I'm just going to give you a link in the chat, and it's by the guy that connected Blue and I and a bunch of us from around the world. It's Office Hours, officehours.global. But the Alex Lindsay, the guy who started all of that, has worked in green screen for many, many years, and worked at Lucasfilm, and like he knows all about this stuff. And so I just sent you a link where he dives, every time he talks about it, he dives deep into green screen. It's really interesting. And if this is something that you want to go down that vortex of how to do this really, really well, then this is a good way to get into, what's the next step of making this even more consistent. And part of it is using video scopes, where you can see the green levels. It's really technical, but it's very cool. You're looking at a video scope, and it tells you the green level across the image, and you can see where the inconsistencies are and work on fixing those inconsistencies. So
thank you so much. I think it's time to stop the chroma key. I'm tech and touch. I want to do touch and leave tech alone, as much as possible. Yep.
Well, there you go.
So thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it, guys.
You're welcome. Yeah. So I wanted to show, I'm playing around with tiles, just to tease you a little bit. So this is you can see the backgrounds. There's a whole bunch of, this is a new program that we haven't quite got access into Obvio yet, for everyone. But I'm playing around with what it is being able to bring in gallery views, customized gallery views. So you can sort of see what's going on there, and you can choose different types of, like this is a round ellipsis, and you can do things like this, and you can change the rounded corners, and then you can change how many people you can see. We haven't got many people with their cameras on, I don't think. So there you go. And it auto changes. So when it was with less people in it. So anyway, this is really just a tease to say that we're playing with these different tools, because this can be a really cool thing to add in the set behind you, where you could have a gallery view and have people you can see everyone changing and see different faces and choose who you can see and who you can't see. So there you go. It's pretty cool. Sarah, you have a question?
So I was wondering about the dashboard, just like how much content you would recommend putting on it. Like, should it be like stuffed, or like should there be like barely anything on it or something in between?
I think what the the content that is on there should be really helpful and there for a good reason. And so if that means that you've got lots of really helpful, useful, important content on your dashboard, then great. That can be as much as you want. But I wouldn't just stack it up for no reason. And sometimes people are like, "Oh, this is a cool feature. Let's turn this on, or let's add this on there." Yeah, being clearer and more direct is better, I think.
Okay.
So you can think about that. You think about what you're trying to offer your attendees, and not confuse them with lots of data and lots of text and images and things just because it looks pretty. You want it to actually really mean something that's really helpful. So that's what I'd say.
Okay.
But there's no technical limitation. You can have as much on there as you want.
Yeah. Also follow up, so do you think that should you like change it around or add new stuff like often or something? Because like on my dashboard I use it for weekly calls. So do you think we should like change it around so it's not like always the same thing, then people kind of get like disinterested?
I think you're answering your own question. I think it's a good question to ask, and I think yeah, and as long as it continues to be helpful,
Mhm.
as long as it's serving the purpose, and so yeah, having something that's changing is really helpful. And we've said this before, like with events that might be a 3-day event, as an example, that having that change for the second day makes people look at it, and they might have, even if not all the content changes, it means that they might see something that they missed the day before because it looks different. And having a little video that plays that gives a little recap of day one, or in your case, the week before, or whatever it is, actually can make it more interesting to people. So rather than them assuming that nothing's changed, they really like it. And to help with that is having dates on things, and make it super clear that this is not old content. This is new content that's been added. So we don't have people use the date feature in the blog post very much, but that's an example of where you could. And you can enable the date, and it shows, oh, this was posted this morning, or and that will grab people's attention because it's today's date. So that's something to think about.
Okay. Do you think it should be like mostly like you said, to put helpful stuff on it?
Hmm.
Should do you think it would be good to have like a lot of like fun things too? Like, I don't know, like like I guess like polls and stuff or whatever? Or should it be
I
like all just
I'd I would just be really careful. I would err on the side of not putting more
Mhm.
for the sake of there just you got to think about, what is it that I'm trying to achieve? What is it that I want the attendees to experience? What is it that you're trying to get them to do or to remember or to know? And so you can confuse it by adding too many things. Polls aren't entertaining, in and of themselves, right? Like, so they're helpful. They're helpful data for you to select, but they're not exciting for people to enter in. So it's just worth thinking about it.
I couldn't think of a better example.
No, fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. You're asking great questions, Sarah. Honestly, it's really good. You're thinking about the right things, and you can experiment and then have some sort of way of assessing whether that was better or worse, and asking people, and at the end of a session, asking people, hey, what did you think of the dashboard? Did you see the XYZ? Those sorts of things, and see what people say and test it out.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Right. Looks like, oh, have we got something else, Heather?
No.
No. Okay. Blue comes along, and we get to finish early. Just more efficient.
This is awesome.
You're welcome, he says. Great. Well, if there are no other questions, then we will leave it for this week. And see you next week. Same time. And you can email us at help@obv.io in the meantime, or catch us on the live chat. All right. Bye-bye.